I think we're live. Do you hear music or you hear my voice? What do you hear? Okay, perfect. Yeah, we're live. I pressed it by accident, so it's live, but they can't see you. They see what's in the preview, and there's a nice song playing. So
Yes, guys, welcome to the first Lilywhite Lounge. Obviously, this is Lilywhite Lab's newest kind of podcast-ish thing where we're going to break down sort of our weekly games, maybe any other stuff that's relevant. So today we're joined by my good friend Ollie. Ollie, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm very good. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. And also joined by Travis. How are you, Travis?
Yeah, I'm good. Excited to be starting this.
Yeah, so I think this is going to be sort of a more chilled out version of our analysis and probably longer form, more of a chat kind of thing. Obviously, we've been on YouTube for a little bit now, but it's been more kind of just shorter videos. But I think this is going to be more of like a discussion form. So let's obviously start with the amazing result on the weekend. One that was very, very due. We were struggling to get points in the last 5 games, so I think more often than not undeservedly struggling. So I think it was definitely overdue, and I really enjoyed the performance. How did you see it, Ollie?
Yeah, like you say, it was finally a result that matched the performances. I think we deserved that result and have done for a while. And I think at 1-0, I think most people were still a bit nervy. And then when that second goes in, you think, okay, this is what we need. And actually, it could have very easily been 3 or 4 by half time, maybe should have been. So I'm sure there's still plenty of things that Postecoglou will be sort of keen to improve upon. But we needed that badly. And against a side like Newcastle, I know heavily depleted through injury, but they're still one of the best sides in the country. They're always going to give you a really tough game. So I think to get that result against the side of that calibre, it speaks volumes and is a bit of a statement. And hopefully it's what we need going forward to kick on.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I think they looked a lot. I mean, everyone keeps going on about how leggy they looked. I think they looked very leggy. I think in possession they were pretty poor. I don't think. I mean, everyone's had a lot of games. They've obviously had European football to cope with too. With a depleted squad, so I think that's part of the reason they look so leggy. But they had a decently strong side out, apart from maybe their back line, their midfield and attack was pretty strong anyway. But yeah,
I think probably the strongest lineup they could have put out. I mean, given injuries, and everything like that. But I think, I don't think they rotated too heavily, but they can't, I guess, is the point right now.
Yeah, and they looked very depleted in terms of mentally and also physically. They looked off it. But I think we made the most of that. I think one of the main things I kept noticing was sort of on every attack how many runs were being made into the box. We were kind of getting into positions and seeing 4 or 5 or 6 players in the box, which is just kind of, I think, what we've been missing a little bit recently. I think at the start of the season, we were seeing a lot more of those direct runs from Sarr and Udogie into the box, and we've seen it a bit less. I don't know if that was a tweak or if that was kind of just down to game situations and stuff. But yeah, it was great to kind of have that amount of bodies in the box because it just created chaos. And I think their first goal was a clear example of that, with Udogie kind of doing a nice bit of play in midfield and then following his kind of pass and running into the box, and then scored an almost poacher's goal, which is like a left back being in that position is not common, but I think for our system that is something that Andrew will allow for, especially with those. I think especially with Udogie, who's got that kind of knack for making those underlaps. So Travis, I think if we start with kind of Porro and Udogie and what you thought about them in this game and what you thought about them, their positions and roles in this game that they were picking up.
Yeah, I think the Udogie performance in particular was probably the archetypal Ange fullback performance and what he wants out of him. In terms of the runs into the box, the underlaps were amazing. I think with Son playing as the winger and operating as more of a touchline winger than we've seen, probably the most we've got out of 1v1 situations all season consistently. I think Doggy's underlapping runs really paid dividends on Sunday. And I think overall he looks really confident, and it's been a while since doing it. I mean, the way he's receiving the ball in midfield was very good, especially for his first goal. The way he received the ball from Porro, moved the ball along, and then instantly made that run into the box. And he did that so many times. He was constantly occupying the channel between Newcastle's right back and right centre back, and it was just causing them so many problems because Trippier didn't know whether to go with him. I think was it Shah or Lascelles on the right?
I think it was
Lascelles on the right, Shah on the left.
Yeah. So it was causing them trouble the whole time, and they didn't know whether to go with him, whether to close, because he mixed really well between making penetrative runs into the space and just sort of occupying that zone, and possibly leaving the option open for a ball to feet, but also a ball in behind over the top if you wanted to make that run. And he did that. His positioning and movement was exceptional. I think that's sort of the key difference between him and Porro as well. Is Porro's more about being the creator with the ball at his feet, whereas the Doggy's more about making those off-ball runs and getting on the end of things. And that's where the balance, I think it works really well. One thing on Porro, actually, which I found interesting in comparison to how he's been so far the rest of the season, he was picking up wide areas a lot more. And he did that against West Ham a bit. And I think that really gets the best out of his abilities, because he's great from crossing in that right half space, but when he can overlap, the low drills into the box he's great at. And it just, as you can see on the pass map there, there's so many low balls and cutbacks that we can get on the end of, and it just really gets the best out of him because he's able to receive in the half space and build up, but then in the final third he's able to then overlap and get that freedom on the wing, and it just the best of both worlds, really.
Yeah, I think I've been calling for, even when Kulusevski was playing out wide predominantly, I really thought that the dynamic would be nice if, maybe Porro comes narrow and build up, but once we advance to the final third, to see more of him overlapping Kulusevski. I think that kind of tweak and that role in general requires such an engine, which maybe would have an impact, and maybe that's why we haven't seen it as much, because Ange is so strict on them inverting in build up that, to go and do that in build up and then get all the way around Kulusevski on the wide flank and then recover again back into his position defensively, I think that's a big ask. And for someone, I think for a fullback to do all that, they need to have a huge engine, and we probably need certain points in the game to sort of slow down the tempo, keep the ball, keep control a bit better, which I think we've struggled with at times in the last few weeks. So I think it's definitely one to watch. And I think in games where we're facing low blocks like West Ham, I would have liked to see that much earlier, because I think there's less requirement for Porro and build up because we're not being pressed. We're not being pressed. We don't need as many bodies in there in those build up phases. We need more in the final third, and I think Porro was doing bits of that, but also could have done a lot more of that. But yeah, I think in this game, that what you said, that sort of contrast between Udogie and Porro was really nice, because it gets the best out of both of them. So Porro, I think he was picking up wide positions, but he was also quite a lot in deeper areas, like deeper passing. So I guess a lot of what Udogie did, which we all liked, was his burst into the box, his carrying of the ball, whereas Porro was more his passing that we loved, like the pass for Richarlison's second goal was a prime example of that. But also, like, there was a couple flicks he did in midfield. I just thought his all-round game was very good, and I think his ability to apply all those technical skills has really come on a lot, because we always knew he was a technical player, but this role is very demanding mentally and physically. So I think he's been a shining light this season. Ollie, we've got a bit of a comment on here, which is Porro being a candidate for Player of the Season due to his consistency. What are your thoughts on that and Porro and Udogie and as a whole this game?
Yeah, I think I probably agree with that shout. I think was it not for the injuries to Maddison and Van der Ven, they'd probably be in contention as well. And had Mero not got the red card against Chelsea, he might be in the discussion as well as Son. But I think for consistency, Porro probably is the outstanding shout for Player of the Season so far. I can't think of a game where he's really disappointed or really struggled. And if he has struggled, that's probably been not so much his fault and down to the system and the game state. But this is probably his best performance of the season, or certainly one of them. I was impressed more by Porro than Udogie actually in this game. I wonder that had Udogie not got his goal, we'd be talking about his performance as much. But I do agree with Travis that he's so good at receiving the ball. And when he's on the ball, I'm not nervous at all. That he hardly ever gives it away. Turning out of trouble is amazing on a half turn. He's fantastic. And like you say, just drives the team forwards. And he picks up those areas that are so dangerous. But I think for me in this game, Porro stood out a little bit more. And that's backed up with the stats as well for this game. It was his highest number of progressive carries this season with 4, three of which were into the penalty box. It's also his most touches in the attacking penalty area from any match this season. So he's getting, I think in this match, we saw him actually forward a lot more than he has been at other times. And I think that's largely down to partly him becoming just more comfortable and familiar in that role. I think his positional understanding has really increased and improving game on game. But also it's about the players around him. It's the first match since the Chelsea defeat that he's had Sarr and Romero in support. And I think that plays a big part, knowing, if we compare it to Emerson Royale behind you, I think it's understandable that you wouldn't be so courageous in going forward. So I think knowing that you've got Romero behind you, knowing that you've got the legs of Sarr to cover you if you do lose possession half the pitch, I think he's got more confidence in doing that. And I think that played a big part in his performance. And yeah, like you say, you mentioned that assist for Richardson's second goal, fantastic. I don't think many players in the league could see that pass, let alone execute it as perfectly as he did. And he was lucky not to get the second assist for the Son was ultimately penalty. The loose touch from Son led penalty, but otherwise it would have been another great assist actually. Really good disguise on the ball. I just think he's getting into those areas consistently. He's got so much freedom, which I think suits his game perfectly. He's got a really good understanding where he needs to be. You mentioned his technical ability. He's linking up with the players around him so well. And especially that race with Sarr, I think is really strong. They're constantly switching out wide and coming inside, and I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, and I think we'll come on to Sarr shortly. I think just one more thing on both Porro and Udogie. I think, yeah, as you said, I think Porro, I'm sure it was a managerial tweak to make him a bit more reserved without Romero there, without Sarr there as well. And so I think, yeah, he's probably enjoyed that increase of freedom against Newcastle with the more safety blanket of having Romero and Sarr there to kind of clean up behind him. And I think he obviously enjoys that forward side of the game probably more, despite the fact that he's really improved his defensive game this season. On Udogie, yeah, I think it's his ability to ride challenges and receive contact. So I guess he'll receive the ball back to goal and be hit with a strong press and sort of just brush it aside and easily advance the ball. And I think that is so vital in those positions he receives in build up, where it's often his back to goal. He often he obviously will be scanning, but he might not have a full picture of what's behind him. And so he's often feeling out for what's behind him. And as soon as that contact comes, some players would kind of melt under that pressure. And I think he's one who just kind of thrives off it and spins out of it so effortlessly. So I think that's a great facet of his game that really helps us in build up.
I think a quick word on it. Sorry, I think that helps him massively in terms of developing his defensive awareness as well, just awareness in general, because when he might not have that ability to scan and quickly look over his shoulder and have that awareness of what's around him. so he can sort of fall back on his physical ability and to know that, okay, I don't know the full picture here, but I'm going to feel around me and I know that I back myself to get out of this space. And I think that aids him massively. And then in time, the more he becomes used to the role, used to the positions, used to the game, just grows and develops naturally, the better those physical capabilities will shine, because he'll have the intelligence paired with it. I think that's what's so exciting. Is only the beginning now, and he only just understands this role, and it's just looking so exciting. We've got him until 2030 now, so
yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah, and I think he's so mature already, and I think with more minutes in this role, I think he's gonna develop into something scary. So I think he's definitely one that's needed to be tied down, and probably deserves to be on that increase of wage. I don't know what the actual figure is, but I think he'd be offered a lot more elsewhere if we weren't careful to tie him down. Let's move on to Sarr, because I think I don't know. I think Sarr, before his injury, or before he's missed a couple games, I think he's probably lost a bit of that. He lost a bit of that hype that everyone had. I guess. Yeah, I think I included that. I wasn't too impressed with his previous performances. I can't recall exactly the performance that he last played where I wasn't happy with, but I think yesterday he was like just incredible. Like I think the game was very transitional. Newcastle play a lot of transitions, both obviously offensively and then they press very high, so there's always a lot of space behind them as well. And I think Sarr is just so perfect for games like that. I think when there's ground to cover, with the amount of bodies we were committing forward, there was always a need. He was one of the bodies too, but he'd always be back on the recovery, and he looks like he just glides over long distances without even looking like he's in full stride. And I think it's ridiculous the amount of ground he can cover in such like short amount of steps. And he does it so effortlessly and so easily. So I think one thing also increased on Sunday, was his technical quality on the ball too. Ollie, what were your thoughts on Sarr and specifically his like technical qualities on the weekend?
Yeah, for me, what's impressive is he always makes the right pass, or seemingly. I think he's got such intelligence for someone so young. I mean, him and Adoji only just both turned 21. You mentioned the hype sort of going there. These people forget how young he is. I think actually in the summer there, before Potsdam came in, there was talk of him going out on loan. You know, last season people thought he wasn't ready to be a regular starter to come this season. But it's that maturity to always pick the right pass that's, for me, is so impressive. And actually his range of passing as well is I think probably quite underrated. We've seen a few times this season he's just spotted a switch of play on, and he's able to pick out that pass with either foot, and that's led often to a goal scoring opportunity. In this game, actually, for me, what stood out was his defensive quality too. It's not something I've really associated with him before. You know, you think of him as, like you say, being this guy that eats up so much ground, amazing in transition. But for me in this game, what stood out was his defensive contributions, and yeah, he won the possession back more than any other match this season, and all of those tackles were in the defensive third. So he's very happy doing the dirty work, which I think is a huge asset to the team. And if he can be a player who wins the ball back and then also gets Spurs up the pitch, I think that's so valuable. And I don't know what Spurs' best midfield three is when everyone's fit. I mean, that's a huge headache. But yeah, I think Sarr's improving all the time. I think you're going to have to get the odd game here and there where he slightly drops his level. I think that's natural when he's still so young and still only just coming into the team regularly. But like you say, a big points move on Sunday probably his best of the season, actually.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think his defensive, for someone who appears so skinny, he's so strong, and yeah, I just love the way he plays. I think I love how he's always got a smile on his face, and like he seems to just enjoy just playing. So I think yeah, he's another huge talent, and I'd love to get him tied down because I think he's on something very low. I can't remember what his wage is, but I think he definitely deserves a new contract. Yeah, and as you say, the midfield options are way better prepared than we kind of thought. I think there was always concerns around Maddison going out. I was never that concerned about the Maddison cover, but I really think we're well covered there now, as much as we can be. And I just want to quickly give a nod to Kulusevski, who I thought was incredible again. I think he's just, when he's got space to dribble in, and then the ability to get into the final third and use that kind of high IQ that he has, I think he's almost unplayable. He's got the physical, technical, and mental attributes all on point. So I think he was great as well. So I just wanted to give a quick shout out to him. But
prefer him in midfield.
I was going to say I prefer him in midfield unless
I do.
Unless when he's out wide, he's got a wing back going around him. I think he needs that to take a defender if he's coming inside and a defender doesn't know whether to go with the fullback or him, which is why he shone so much in that first Conte season, because I think he was allowed to come inside into the pockets. He's still good out wide, but I don't think he's elite there, and I think he's elite when he finds the pockets like he has been doing. Travis,
he seems to enjoy that more as well, and he's come out.
He's repeatedly said it. I think it's clear that he prefers that role. I think that makes sense because it kind of makes the most of his main qualities. So he played there throughout his academy days. So I think he's definitely one who he's flexible, but I would see him as that player. But I think he's sort of like our Bernardo Silva in a way where Andrew will probably use him where he's needed, but where he'll always play. It doesn't really always mean we know where, but I think he'll always be on the team sheet. And for me, he's been one of our best players this season. But yeah, that was just a quick little side note. But I wanted to then touch on why you thought Son had such a good game, because I think we've all, especially I've done a lot of talking about how I didn't think Son was the right suitability out wide for the role. This game, it appeared he very much was. Why do you think Son was so good this game? I think he was unbelievable as well. I think he was so dangerous every time he got the ball. Travis, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting one because, as you said, we were questioning Son's ability to play out wide, and I think those questions are still valid. But it was probably one of his best performances so far this season, if not the best, because he just looked so positive every time he got the ball. He just went to drive a Trippier. And I think I don't know if that was just something that he'd been told to do because it's Trippier and because of the form he's been in recently. And maybe he was going to just target that area of weakness. And I do wonder whether that was partly due to how impressive he looked. Because I don't think if you put him up against, I wouldn't say a Wan-Bissaka, but I don't know, Joel Wall or something like that, someone who's a reliable, consistent defender. Maybe that wasn't the best example. I
think that's kind of Joel Wood.
Yeah, I don't think he would still play with that confidence, even though I think sometimes he can do that. And I think he needs to back his ability to go either way more. He may not have the explosiveness or the pace off the mark or the trickery. I think what bodes him so well is his ability to go either way. In terms of defender knows that he's got no strong foot or he's got no weak foot. So they're instantly second guessing themselves as to which way to let him go. And because he's so good at cutting in and curling a shot into the far corner, but we've also now got so many runners, the cutback is hugely dangerous as well. So I think the amount of runners definitely makes him more dangerous anyway, because it just instantly gives him more options. But I'm intrigued to see going forward if he continues that level, because it did very much, like you think about it, he didn't necessarily take Trippier on loads. It was more Trippier sort of fumbling a bit. So I wonder how much of it was to do with Trippier than on himself.
I think there was a few reasons why, in my eyes, that he shone today. I think it was, not today, on Sunday. I think, first of all, Trippier's just objectively a bad 1v1 defender. We've seen many examples of that. He's not quick. He's asked to do a lot by Newcastle, and I think he's not the most physically blessed right back. So I think that's one facet of it. I think secondly, I think he's because the game was quite transitional, Son was allowed to kind of build momentum in his runs. So once he got towards Trippier, he was often in full stride and able to kind of go either way. So I think that's kind of one main thing. On the other hand, Son himself, I think, he's a great ball striker. So off both feet, if he goes down the line, he's going to whip in very good crosses like he did all game. If he cuts in on his right, he's gonna have a great chance of at least testing the keeper. I think what he needs to do is use that, as you said, the two-footedness more, and kind of take a leaf out of someone like Perisic's book, because someone like Perisic he's not extremely tricky or skillful, but he has the same move on lock every time as either a one step over or two step overs, and he goes either down the line or cuts in and crosses or shoots. And the skill is very simple, but it's just about executing it quickly and effectively. And Son has that two-footedness and ball striking. So I think it seems like a mentality issue, because he's great in 1v1 when he has momentum, but he's not so great when he has to slow down and then take his man on. I think that's where he struggles. Ollie, what are your thoughts on him?
I agree with everything that's said, really. I think, like you say, the defender knows that they can't allow him inside, because otherwise, his finishing is so good that it could easily lead to a goal or at least shot on target, and from there it might be ricochet out to a play or whatever. I don't think it's a long-term solution, just because of his age, and like you say, when he slows down, he sort of what's the saying? Double guesses. Is that yeah. Like you say, he's not decisive. Second guesses. Yeah. Second guesses. He's not decisive when it's slowed down. But so I don't think it's a long-term answer. I think you still need to look for that 1v1 winger in January or the summer, because there's such a good market currently. But in this game, and I think against certain teams, it's a good option. And I wonder, it's interesting. I wonder if Ange viewed him as a winger the whole time, but it was only down to Richarlison's sort of fitness or lack of that he was forced to play Son centrally. So it'll be interesting from now to see where he decides to play him.
I think one thing that's really coming together with this team is the flexibility and the ability to adapt game by game based on the opponent. And it's almost, apart from defence, which you don't really want much flexibility in anyway, you want a stable backline. We've got a really flexible team in terms of who plays where and what different roles can bode us well in certain circumstances. So you've got Star when we need more legs, like against Newcastle, but against deeper blocks, you could maybe play the Celso and Kulusevski there. Obviously, Maddison when he comes back. Kulusevski can play in multiple roles. Son can play out wide down the middle. Same with Richarlison. If we want to target a weaker fullback back post against a low block, Richarlison could work there. And then if you add a 1v1 winger to that, it only makes that even more strong.
Yeah, and my thoughts with Richarlison back is, I think in games where we're facing a packed box, a low block, we need him to be playing. I was against West Ham. I thought we were despite all the dominance, we were quite toothless in terms of building actual clear-cut opportunities to get shots off or create chances. And I think part of that was Son sort of getting swallowed up by the amount of bodies in kind of in the box. And I think if Richarlison's there, I think he's going to score ugly, kind of. And I think he's more of a fighter in between defenders and stuff like that. So I think Richarlison's definitely my chosen striker in games where we're playing against low blocks. And so therefore Son, I think, does suit the wide role for now at times. But it's difficult because against different opposition that it all changes. But that'll be a nice kind of segue onto Richarlison, who I thought was good again. Good without. I think a lot of people were very, very impressed. I wasn't like super impressed, but I thought he was good. I thought he was like very effective. He worked hard off the ball. He got his 2 goals. Neither were the most clinical of finishes, but yeah, I think he had a good performance and is one to build on definitely. What were your thoughts, Ollie, on kind of Richarlison's role in this game and how did he kind of compare to previous Richarlison performances this season?
I agree with you that I think people probably got a little bit carried away. I think he's likeable. People want him to do well. Obviously, it's a big price tag that comes with, that he arrived with, and that adds a lot of pressure and expectation, and that means that fans are even more keen for him to do well. But I agree that against Newcastle, 2 goals, great, helped us win the game, but he wasn't the player that I think a lot of fans are making out to be. Especially that second goal, he didn't mean to let it run. He got lucky there, really, and I think against a better keeper, the keeper stands his ground and makes a save. And even the first one was slightly scuffed, and he's not that strong with his left particularly. But there's promising signs there. He's getting to the right position. He could have scored, probably should have scored 4 or 5, really. In the first half, I can think of a few more chances that he didn't put away. The header especially was agonisingly close. But there's definitely a player there. And, I believe what Ange is saying, what Richarlison is saying about the importance of his groin surgery and what difference that can make. I mean, we saw last season is a very recent example in Son, who struggled for the whole of last season, and the whole season he's carrying an injury, one we only found out about at the end of the season. But it explains a lot of his sort of struggles last year. And since operation, since that recovery, Son's looked like a new player, but back to his best. And the same could be with Richarlison, and I really hope it is. Like you say, he's able to play centrally or wide, and that gives a lot to the team. And he's different profile, completely different to Son. I wonder what more he has that Alejo Veliz has. Obviously, we bought Veliz to fit the system, to be that physical presence in the box, aerially strong. Lot of similarities with Richarlison. So I wonder what Richarlison has that Veliz doesn't. Is that just experience? I don't know.
Yeah,
we've got a question from Harry. So,
I was going to tell. Yeah, I think what that question was from Harry in the comments was, did his movement look freer, or is it placebo because we know he's had surgery? And I think, for me, I didn't see the difference. I've heard people say that he's looked freer, and I think if I was maybe there and I wasn't at this game, and if I was there in the flesh, I think I would have maybe noticed it if it was the case. But what I know about injuries is it's not just the kind of physical change it does, but the mental change. If you're carrying something, you second guess yourself, you hesitate before certain movements. And so I think that definitely could have a both mental and physical impact, that surgery. And so hopefully that is the case. I think in terms of comparisons to Veliz, I think Richarlison's probably currently more of like a fighter. He's probably more willing to go up against big defenders. I think Veliz is physical, but he's not used to the league yet. He's less probably likely to scrap with defenders. I think he's probably more of a cleaner footballer, but not at that kind of first team ready level that Richarlison is yet. That's what I'm kind of guessing from what I've seen of Veliz and what I've seen of Richarlison. But yeah, I think Richarlison in general profiles pretty well as the striker that we want. I just don't think long term he's that elite finisher. I think he's got most of the other attributes. I think he's maybe struggles in build up a little bit. We don't need too much from our striker in build up. I think he presses extremely well. That's kind of one of his elite attributes. He's always making runs. Another kind of important attribute of an striker. But what will take us to the next level is having all of that plus that calm, composed finish at the end of moves, because I think there's games where we create enough where 2 goals on Sunday would be enough, and even though he missed a couple more, but there's also games where he might only get 1 or 2, and if he misses them both, that could be the difference between a loss and a win. So yeah, Andrew's just asking if I'd still move him on in the next couple of windows, and I'm gonna hand that over to Travis because I'll give my opinions after.
Yes, to be honest, that's just the bluntest way to put it. I think we're not going to recoup any of the. We're not going to recoup 60 million. I think the most we can get is probably 40 or 50 from Saudi Arabia or something like that, is the hope. But I think we know long term he's not really the one to take us forward for all the reasons you've just mentioned, Kish. And I think his the things that we want him to develop, he can't necessarily develop, and he won't be able to at this age if he's not got the elite finishing yet, if he's not got that knack for quickly getting a shot away and backing his ability. I don't think it's going to develop in time, especially not with the pressure that's on his shoulders right now. And he seems to be a player who relies very, very heavily on his mental state and being in the right confident mindset. So I think with all the pressures on his shoulders, I would move him on for a variety of reasons. I think he's not necessarily good enough in general to reach the level we want to reach, and also his age. He's not someone really young that we can get loads of years out of. And there's a lot of good profiles on the market, and there's for a decent price. We're not going to have to spend 100+ million on a world-class striker, because we're in our development phase as well. And now is the perfect time to get that striker to slowly bed in with us. And I think if we hopefully reach the levels we do in a few seasons as well, the longer it goes on we don't have a striker, the harder it will be to get one, because we'll have to pay more and more for a higher quality striker for the higher quality we are currently playing at that point in time.
I think prior to the season, I would have said definitely keep. I think he, as I said, he profiles well, and because of my kind of expectations, we weren't going to be necessarily where I think we're currently at. I think I've been very surprised with how quickly things have gone to plan and the systems kind of started to work. I didn't think every single one of the signings would necessarily be a hit, which they sort of have in terms of at least the 3 key ones, which were Maddison, Van der Ven, and Vicario. I think they've all been hits. And Doggy, Sarr, and Porro all coming good, sort of previous, most recent transfers. So I think all of that is sort of made me think, okay, we're not actually as far off as I necessarily thought we would be at this stage. And I think getting that cold finisher would take us up a level, and kind of isn't necessarily at the back of my priority list now, because of how well some players have done. So I'm thinking we need probably a winger, 1v1 winger. We obviously need a centre back, maybe 2, possibly one that can cover at left back / right back, or maybe 2 defenders, one that can cover both centre back roles and one that can cover both full back roles, or something like that. And then after that, my priority is probably a striker, depending on how well Bentancur again comes back from injury. So I don't think we're that far off that position being high on the list. What are your thoughts on that, Ollie?
About the priorities in the market.
Yeah, I guess what priority do you think? How much should we prioritize a new striker over the next say 1, 2, 3 windows.
Yeah, I was thinking about this on the weekend actually. Now he's seen Son able to perform centrally and wide, and Richarlison playing both as well. I'm not entirely sure where the priority lies. If it is still that 1v1 winger or if it's a striker. I think because of the options that we have up front in terms of younger players as well. In the academy, we've got Lancashire, Vincent Bell, Donny can play there, Belize as well. I think I'd probably still prioritise the wide left over the striker. And also I think there's a couple of standout guys in the market that would really fix the issue, a left wing, more so than a striker. There's a couple of good names, but we spoke about length. I think.
Sorry, go on, Ollie.
No, I was going to say, I think there's some elite guys at left wing that are worth getting whilst you can.
Yeah, I think we've got more profiles in the squad that can perform that striker role to a high enough level, whereas we have no one that can beat their man consistently. We don't have an elite 1v1 winger anywhere near any one of the sorts. So I think that's probably a more pressing need. But at the same time, seeing how quickly Ange has been able to implement the new signings, it maybe wouldn't take as much time as I initially thought for a striker to bed in. And that if it just so happens that they are that elite striker with that elite finishing ability, and they've got the raw skill set and raw abilities, they might be able to just click into gear relatively quickly. And especially with the type of player we need, someone that could just finish the chances consistently, and they don't have to get too involved in build-up, and they just sort of need to be there at the right place, right time. If they've got those raw abilities and Ange is good at getting the best out of them quickly, maybe it would make more of an impact at a much faster level than a 1v1 winger would.
Yeah, that's why I think the role is pretty simple. It doesn't require necessarily... It's a proper number 9. It's like an old school number 9 who is there to score goals. I don't think there's much else to it, really. Obviously, someone who needs to be able to press out of possession, but just more so constantly testing the back line and being in the box and having those sharp movements in the box to create that split second of time to get on the end of things. And that profile seems like quite a simple one to scout for. I guess they have to be a bit of a presence in the box. If they're not a presence, they have to have elite movement. And I think Son has certain types of elite movement, but I think where he lacks a bit is probably in the penalty area, those like tiny little movements, subtle movements that you might not notice, but that are the difference between getting on the end of a cross and the defender clearing it. And the likes of someone like Cavani, Higuain, those sort of profiles who are not necessarily massive or strong, but just have that knack for finding little spaces in the box.
The ability to manipulate the defender. And
turning on their blind side, faking to go one way and then going the other way. Maybe often what I see from elite strikers is they'll make a sharp run and then suddenly stop, and then they'll have that split second of time around the penalty spot, that kind of thing, I guess. And then also having the ability to finish it off. I was thinking surely one of the young guys like Lancashire, we've got Soonsup Bell, we've got Donny can play there, Troy Parrott out on loan, Dane Scarlett out on loan. I'm thinking one of them's got to be Belize, one of them's got to grow into something. And they all match up pretty well to the role. I know Soonsup Bell had a massive hype a couple of years ago at Chelsea, but sort of stalled. I know Lancashire we bought in from Sheffield United. And Dane Scarlett obviously has had big hopes put on him, but he's kind of stalled. Troy Parrott, same. Had a couple of unsuccessful loan spells, so it doesn't seem to be developing well there. But I think it's not impossible that one of those guys could grow into something over the next few years. But there's also great options on the market.
I like Lancashire, and I think he's probably the one that stands out to me most. I think he's got physicality at a young age. He's only still 18, and he scores a lot of goals. And actually is nominated for the PL2 November Player of the Month. So he's well established at that level and actually playing a few years.
And he got called to England the other day as well, didn't he?
He's strong. He's a really good player. But let's see Richarlison. I think, like you say, he ticks a lot of boxes. I would also move him on if the right fee came in January or the summer. But let's see. I think we've got a really good run of 6 or 7 or 8 games now, all very winnable. And I think he should be looking at a minimum about 5 goals in the next sort of 7 or 8 games. And if he can do that, then I trust him more. And like Travis said, he's an emotional guy. His mentality plays a big part in his performances, and he'll take a lot of confidence from Sunday, rightly so. And I think I'm interested to see what he can do with that confidence.
Yeah, I agree. So on to Forest, obviously on the Friday night, I believe. Obviously, we'll have a preview out before that game on our Twitter or X, as it's known now. Yeah, I guess we won't go into that too much, and we'll save that for next time. One extra person we forgot to touch on, sort of story of probably his career. Ben Davies, who was probably again a consistent performer this game. I think he has, as I've clearly demonstrated, he goes unnoticed. I think he was solid again, and I've said I think his performances have sort of shifted my priority in the market in January to a right-sided centre-back over a left-sided centre-back. Obviously, we want someone ideally who can play both, which I'm sure will be looking at players that can do both. But I think in the past, like Lloyd Kelly, we were heavily linked with, is much more of a left centre-back. And I think we're more needing of a right-sided centre-back. What are your thoughts on that, Travis?
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I love Ben Davies. I'm in that very rare group, but I just think he's such a solid and consistent performer. And contrary to beliefs, he actually hasn't let us down that much. He's just not at the level. Yeah, he's not a top 4 quality player in a consistent top 4 team, and that's fine. But that's also a great servant to have at the club, and someone who you can consistently fall back on. He's a solid Premier League player. I think what actually surprised me, especially at the weekend, his assuredness and comfort on the ball was really, really good. And that's the one area where I've always felt uncertain with him. But he was receiving the ball really comfortably. He looked comfortable playing a high line as well. He was progressing the ball really well. I wonder if that has to do with maybe knowing where everyone's going to be and not having to be that creative spark himself from the back line. And he just knows that he's going to receive the ball from Vicario. He can quickly turn and find a doggy. And what he did a lot was instantly receive the ball and just played it straight to Son because he knew that channel would be open because of a doggy tucking inside. It just makes things a lot simpler for him. Yeah. And he was just reliable, as he always is.
Yeah, I think if you look at his pass map there, one thing that I think really helps him in this system is playing as a centre-back in this system. They'll often find themselves passing it from those a bit wider areas. So if you look at his passing map, because our fullbacks are so narrow, often there's that space to carry the ball into those wider half spaces / even the proper flanks. And so I think that really suits his build-up game because he's used to playing at those angles. I think one thing that Davies has always shone in doing is that like wrapped pass into midfield. That kind of from that left-hand side into a doggy or maybe the left 8. So I think that really helps him. And yeah, as you said, he's not going to set the world alight, but I think he's a good squad player. I think he's been a victim of a lack of probably offloading of deadwood, and so gets thrown in with the rest of that, and that's fair enough. I think because I think a more ruthless club probably would have moved on from him by now, but I don't think he's the problem at the club. I think he's a solid squad player who will probably play maybe 2 years more max, and then we'll probably be upgraded on, which is fine. I think he's doing a good job currently. What do you think, Ollie?
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, really. I also am a big fan of Ben Davies. He's been there for a long time now. It's like apart from Lloris, I think he's our joint longest serving player, along with Dyer, something like that, right? 2014, was he pushing his first signing? Or is that right?
One of.
It was that summer anyway. He's been there a long time, and he's played left back. He's played on the left side of back three under Conte, even left wing back under Conte. And now, obviously, both in the inverted role under Ange at left back and also at centre back. I think he's actually much better suited to the centre back under Ange than he is left back. I think left back is probably another area you need to look at in the market. Back up to a doggy who's someone who's comfortable coming to midfield. I think Valentino Barco is probably my top choice for that. But Davies, yeah, he's just, like you say, he's Mr. Reliable, and that's actually really valuable to a squad. And he's not demanding to be starting. He's not going to sort of upset the dressing room. He knows his role. He's a fairly experienced, very calm head, and actually, I think he's always made the right choices on the ball. He's always had a pretty good way to pass. And there was one ball over the top. I can't remember if it was two now, but it could have easily resulted in a goal on the weekend. I think he's adapting to that role really well. Like you say, he's just becoming more and more comfortable in that role, and I think obviously when Van der Ven's fit, he'll come straight back in because he's got so many unique qualities. But Davies he's impressed, and he's really stepped up at a time when we needed him to most.
Yeah. I completely agree with that. What were you going to say, John?
Ollie, you took this slightly off topic. You mentioned Valentin Barco. I think if we were to get Barco and have a doggy, it's just sort of monopolising the left back market. It's a bit unfair. So
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, let's go for it.
With Barco as well, he can play a number of positions. Left wing, centre mid. I think he's unbelievable. But yeah, I think that's all true on Davis. But yeah, I think we're in a good position to kind of push on now. I think we've got a good run of fixtures, which we can definitely, hopefully, at least the next four, we can get wins in all of those. And I think when I was looking at the table, I don't think we're as far off as I thought we'd be after such a crazy run. So yeah, it's fireworks outside my house.
Yeah,
I think we're gonna wrap it up there unless anyone else has any questions.
They're just happy that we finished the first episode of Lilywhite Lounge. That's why.
That's a nice one.
They're relieved it's over. Celebrating is over.
Yeah, if anyone has any questions, I don't even know if anyone's watching, how many people are watching, but feel free to put them in the chat now.
Yeah.
And if you guys had anything else you wanted to say before we wrap up.
One more thing actually on Davies, I suppose, worth saying is that he's another guy that alongside Romero works well. He's happy. Romero can still be that aggressor, and Davies never going to be that guy. He's happy just to sit off. Like I said, he's that calm head at the back, so he actually complements Romero really well.
Yeah,
I think alongside Emerson Royale, he didn't look comfortable, and that's because Emerson Royale wasn't comfortable. But I think he's as steady as those around him, basically.
I think also Romero helps him because I think that's one of Davis's weaknesses at times. I think he's a bit too passive.
Sure.
Like he doesn't love physical contact or anything like that. So I think Romero definitely covers for those. Got one question from Reed, which is do we have any threads this week? We will have obviously a thread out about the Forest game, and we'll also have a thread on Udogie coming also. So those two, and then more content to follow with
you might also will hopefully be having a TikTok coming out on Bissouma soon as well, and his future as the number 6, whether that's right for him or we need to look into the market elsewhere.
So yeah, keep an eye out for that, guys. And if you haven't yet, please like the video, subscribe to our channel, because obviously we're going to have a lot more stuff like this coming out. Lilywhite Lounge, but also our weekly sort of analysis videos. And yeah, follow us on Twitter, which is Lilywhite at Lilywhite Lab. I believe. Is it Lilywhite Lab or is it?
Yeah,
Lilywhite?
it's at Lilywhite Lounge.
There we go. But yeah, thanks guys for coming on, and we'll be sure to see you next week. And let's all wish each other good luck for the Friday's game, because I'm sure we'll Tottenham it and probably not win that one. But yeah, good to see you guys.
Good to see you.
Enjoyed it.